Susan Page and David Gregory, when we talk about gun violence in this country, and we're not talking about Second Amendment rights. We're talking, as I was discussing with the Brady campaign officials yesterday, about reasonable background checks, reasonable controls, automatic weaponry and ammo, the multiple rounds that caused the greatest amount of violence. Remember the names. We remember Littleton, Colorado, April 20th, 1999. Columbine, you just referred to. This history, Aurora, obviously what happened to Gabby Giffords, not a school context, but gun violence has been epidemic in this country going back for decades, and we go through temporary periods after the Reagan assassination attempt and after several of these other incidents where we have an assault weapon ban and then it is permitted to expire. David? We know the contours of this debate, and it will get heated after an appropriate period of mourning and absorbing this tragedy, but it is worth adding all sides of the debate. We don't know what the motive is here. We don't know more about the shooter. We don't know about the weapon involved. But we know that this is another horrifying case of gun violence. You have more detail. And here we have a hundred of children in an elementary school, children age 5 to 10 years old. Here is one of the children after this morning's terrible incident, which apparently started around 9:30 when the kids were all in assembly.
I was out in the hall when, like, everybody heard the bullets.
Yeah.
They, like, went into a total panic.
And how were you doing? What went on in your head as this was happening?
Whoa.
Whoa!
So, yeah.
I mean, just
well, it's just very
fear and shock
to think about even the kids who witnessed any of this being interviewed or being subjected to any of it. The issue about what we don't know, about what motivated the shooter, there's so many facts that we just don't know, so we shouldn't speculate about. One obvious point that comes up, you heard in the 911 call, Andrea, this was a school that was in lockdown. There are lockdown provisions in place in schools across the country. I think you can watch this and have an immediate reaction. Does more have to be done to prevent just anyone from walking up to our school campuses with a gun and doing this sort of violence? I think that's obviously something that'll be looked at, as unfortunate as that is to contemplate.
And of course, gun control, not an issue at all in the presidential campaign that we just had. The only time I remember it being raised was during that debate, the town hall debate in Hempstead, New York, where a woman in the audience stood up and asked President Obama about trying to reenact the ban on assault weapons, which has not been something that either side has been willing to discuss it because
the politics are stalled on this, and even if the starting point is we have an epidemic of gun violence, what do we do to deal with that culturally? What do we do with mentally disabled people? How do we address this that doesn't just automatically go to the place of gun control? Again, in this situation, we have no idea what the access to weapons here, what any of those factors were, and we won't speculate about that. But we have another horrifying episode of gun violence, and it involves children, and unfortunately, that is going to only heighten the vitriol on both sides, but it's going to heighten everyone's awareness about this and the discussion about it in the most horrifying of ways because of who's involved.
And the fact that it was an elementary school, we've had Virginia Tech, as horrifying as all of these incidents are. I think no one seeing the face of that little boy, who presumably should not have been interviewed in the first place, but was clearly in shock and was trying to cope with the emotion of what he had just experienced.
Right. Well, there is, I talk to my own kids, but I talk to other kids. I mean, there's such an age of curiosity. My guess is that that last young man was probably 6 years old or so. And, there's a tremendous amount of curiosity in the most basic ways about why something like this would happen. I don't think we can answer that any better as adults thinking about it. But there'd be a lot of questions, and I suspect there's principals around the country.
And we're seeing that this could be the press conference with the law enforcement officials. It's about to start. They're setting up the microphones, but as soon as they are ready to go, we're going to go with them.